All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, incredibly high stakes international investigation that literally just culminated in a stunning arrest down in Florida. We're looking at a case that sits right at this crazy intersection of global politics, humanitarian aid, and alleged international financial crime. We're going to break down the exact anatomy of a money laundering conspiracy as outlined by federal prosecutors. And trust me, it's a wild ride. We're talking shell companies, fake invoices, state-owned oil, and hundreds of millions of dollars. The shocking contrast at the very heart of these allegations is basically summed up perfectly by U.S. Attorney Jason A. Ridden-Quinones. He said, and I quote, "A humanitarian food program intended to support vulnerable Venezuelans was instead manipulated for massive personal enrichment." That right there, that is the foundational claim of this entire indictment. Federal prosecutors are alleging that a system literally designed to feed a struggling population was essentially hijacked. It's a stark, dramatic accusation from the Justice Department, and it really sets the stage for everything we're about to uncover. But, to really grasp how this whole thing came together, our narrative actually has to start at the climax. Picture this. May 16th, 2026. The accused is officially deported by Venezuela's migration agency and handed straight over to the United States. Just 2 days later, he's standing in a federal court in the Southern District of Florida, taken into custody by Homeland Security Task Force agents. I mean, it's an incredibly sudden and dramatic shift, right? 1 minute, you're a powerful foreign political operative. The next, you are facing the full weight of the American justice system. So who exactly is the man standing in that Florida courtroom? Well, his name is Alex Nain Saab Moran. He's a 55-year-old Colombian national, but his influence runs incredibly deep within the Venezuelan government. We're talking about a guy who formerly served as Venezuela's Minister of Industry and National Production. Plus, and this is key, he is known for his deeply close ties to Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. He even served as president of the country's International Center for Productive Investment. So clearly this isn't some low-level operative. This is someone who operated at the absolute highest echelons of political power. Okay, let's get into part one, the humanitarian facade. Everything in this case traces back to a program known as CLAP. Now, the Comité Local de Abastecimiento y Producción was an initiative set up by the Venezuelan government, and its stated purpose was absolutely vital. It was a welfare program specifically designed to address severe food shortages across the country. The government's goal with CLAB was to import and distribute much-needed food supplies directly to vulnerable citizens who were just struggling to survive. But there is a staggering juxtaposition at play here. On paper, CLAP was intended to import food for the needy, but according to U.S. prosecutors, the reality was actually a vehicle for massive personal profit and corruption. Court records claim that instead of fulfilling agreements to bring in actual food supplies, Saab and his associates turned this critical welfare program into a massive opportunity to siphon away vast sums of money for their own personal gain. Which brings us to part two, the laundering machine. The indictment outlines this highly organized, step-by-step money laundering conspiracy. So let's actually walk through the prosecution's timeline together. Step one, it allegedly begins with bribes. Saab and his associates are accused of paying off Venezuelan public officials just to win those lucrative CLAP contracts in the first place. Step two, rather than actually setting up a real supply chain, they allegedly created a massive, tangled network of shell companies. Step three, to make those shell companies look legit, they generated fraudulent invoices and totally falsified shipping records. And finally, step four, and this is the crucial step that would ultimately be their undoing, they routed these illicit funds through U.S. bank accounts. The sheer audacity of the fabricated paperwork here is just astounding. To hide the fact that they weren't actually delivering the required food, authorities say Saab and his network totally falsified the origins of the shipments. They submitted paperwork falsely claiming that food was steadily arriving from Colombia and Mexico. This elaborate paper trail gave them the perfect cover to simply pocket the money that was supposed to be spent on actual supplies for Venezuelan citizens. Let's just pause for a second to really let the staggering scale of this alleged theft sink in. Hundreds of millions of dollars. That is the amount of money federal prosecutors say was diverted from the Venezuelan food program. Literally hundreds of millions of dollars meant for a starving population, allegedly redirected right into the pockets of a few individuals through this crazy labyrinth of shell companies and fake documents. But wait, according to the indictment, the conspiracy didn't stop at just the food program. As U.S. sanctions heavily restricted Venezuelan oil exports and put a massive strain on the country's finances, the scheme supposedly expanded. Saab and his associates allegedly gained access to billions of dollars worth of petroleum owned by the state oil company PDVSA. Prosecutors claim they sold this state-owned oil under false pretenses, effectively bypassing international sanctions entirely, and then used the illicit proceeds to keep the fraudulent clap operation funded and running. Now, this alleged conspiracy spanned years, running from 2019 all the way through at least January of 2026. What's really fascinating here is how openly Saab operated during this period. For instance, right in the middle of this alleged timeline, in January 2024, he was seen appearing publicly right alongside Nicolas Maduro at an event in Caracas. He was essentially operating in plain sight for years, right up until the timeline abruptly ends with his deportation to the U.S. on May 16, 2026. All right, part 3, the United States steps in. So, you might be wondering, how exactly did the United States obtain the legal authority to arrest a foreign national over a Venezuelan program? Well, the answer is a fatal flaw. Remember step 4 of that money laundering scheme we looked at earlier? Prosecutors state that to hide the origins of the PDVSA oil proceeds and the diverted CLAP funds, the conspirators routed the money through U.S. financial channels. By moving these illicit funds through American bank accounts, they inadvertently triggered U.S. legal jurisdiction. That single administrative decision gave the U.S. Homeland Security Task Force and federal prosecutors the exact authority they needed to step in and act. And the U.S. government has made their stance on this incredibly clear. Assistant Attorney General A. Tyson Duva stated the criminal division will not allow foreign actors to exploit the American financial system and use it as a safe haven for the proceeds of their corruption. It is a firm, no-nonsense declaration that protecting the integrity of American financial networks is a top priority, regardless of where the underlying corruption actually originates. The legal consequences of exploiting that financial system are severe. Because of these money laundering conspiracy charges, Alex Saab is currently facing a maximum of 20 years in a federal prison if he's convicted. 20 years. It really drives home exactly how seriously the U.S. justice system treats the manipulation of its banks to hide international corruption. To wrap up, I want to leave you all with a final thought to consider. We've seen how tracking illicit funds through U.S. banks exposed an alleged heist of a massive welfare program. So if policing American financial networks is this effective at exposing foreign corruption, what does this mean for the future intersection of global sanctions and humanitarian aid? How many other programs, designed to help the most vulnerable, might be hiding similar networks behind shell companies and fake invoices? It's a complex, incredibly challenging question about the real human cost of corruption, and one that this indictment places squarely in the spotlight.